Hey everyone, James here from the High Performance Health Program. Got Colin, Have, and Chris with me today as we dive into another couple of topics on the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about understanding the total daily energy expenditure and also breaking the negative feedback loop. And what I mean by feedback loop is kind of self-sabotage in fitness and in your nutrition journey, identifying signs that could be telling you you're about to go through a period of that, and what we can do about it. So before we kind of dive in, uh, first of all, for me, I think total daily energy expenditure is absolutely huge. You know, when we look at the model and we look at 100% of our total daily energy and expenditure, we can break it down into two categories: non-resting and resting. Non-resting, sorry, resting is something that we can't control, and then we have non-resting energy expenditure. So, I think a lot of people think that weight management is just kind of about eating. Pav, sorry, I've jumped ahead of myself. Can you explain total daily energy expenditure and why it matters for overall health and fitness?
So TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, is total number of calories your body burns per day. Yeah, that means if you understand that help you to lose fat, build muscles, maintain weight efficiently. And many people struggle with weight because they underestimating how much they actually eat and how much they overestimate, basically, or they overestimate how much they burn. Yeah. So we're talking here everything, movement, the that number, that total daily energy expenditure breaks down in certain elements. Shall I dive deep into these or
Yeah,
just
yeah,
leave?
please do.
Yeah. So basically, it's basal metabolic rate, which is calories that our body burns while we're resting. It's just literally to keep our heart, organs, brain running. It's normally about 60, maybe even 70 of total. Yeah, again, from total daily, all we burn, about 60 to 70% is just the fact we are alive. Then second element, which is a little bit small, obviously, is NEAT, is non-exercise activity, thermogenesis. So that's movements outside our scheduled workouts. Yeah, it could be walking, could be fidgeting, could be cleaning, anything that's not a purposeful workout. And that one is probably making the second biggest impact on our metabolism. Then number four, we have exercise activity, which is calorie we burned with when we working out, whether it's in a gym, we go for a run, and this is way much smaller than most people think. It's normally from all, again, I go to very beginning, total daily calorie expenditure. The exercise one is anywhere between probably 5 to 10% only. And finally, we have one more element, which is thermic effect of food. So when we eat food, our body needs to process that food, and for that process needs energy. So calories that our body burn from the, digesting our food, that's thermic effect of food. And here is also not everything same. And one of the reasons why we very often, at least myself, and I believe you guys as well, talking about importance of protein, other than benefits of for muscle build, etc. It's that protein burns for body in order to process protein actually burns the most calories for digestion. Yeah, when we're talking about fat, we can talk probably close to zero. When we're talking about carbohydrates, I think, and I hope I'm not gonna make mistake, anywhere between the 5 to 7%, maybe slightly more. Protein takes about 20 to 30% of energy we consume. Yeah. So if we eat, example, I'm just gonna make up numbers. If we eat protein worth of 100 calories, about 20 to 30 calories are burned just for processing that protein. Make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which
So
is huge, right? Which is why we massively push people having a high protein diet. Sorry, carry on,
So yeah,
Pav.
basically protein, very simply said, will help your metabolism go to higher kind of level, higher speed, or adjust metabolism or increase metal, whatever we're gonna call it. Just by eating more protein, your body will burn more calories.
Absolutely. So if we just kind of focus specifically right now, my question is just purely about exercise, which I know, as you mentioned, it only really is about 5% of the day's energy expenditure. Colin, what benefits you more, strength training or cardio? What has the biggest impact in increasing your total daily energy expenditure?
Well, daily cardio is going to burn more calories, but an important point that Pav just made there is if I'm consuming more protein, I'm doing more resistance training where I'm actually building more muscle. My body needs more protein, and the more muscle I have, the more mass I have, the more calories I will burn at rest, which means the more I'm going to burn throughout the day. So that's actually going to increase my overall calorie burn. So, as I say, if I have to be 5 pounds lighter tomorrow, I'm probably going to do a lot of cardio, or I'm going to get in a sauna, drop some water away. I'm probably not going to go and do a bunch of weights because I might then have more of an inflammation effect. But if I'm looking at long term, how do I maintain my metabolism over long term? Then I definitely want to be building some muscle mass. That doesn't mean you need to, be Ronnie Coleman or Phil Heath on stage, but we need to be able to pick ourselves up and down from a chair, anyways, or off the floor. And yeah, we need to be able to bring all the groceries in one go.
Absolutely. The way I always look at it is muscle burns fat, cardio burns calories. And that's something that I always kind of push with my clients, the understanding of, because you're absolutely right. If you go into the gym right now and if you were to hit start on your Apple Watch, and I know this is a podcast we're going to dive into in a couple of weeks' time with regards to wearing a sports watch, but if I run for an hour, my watch says I've burnt off 800 calories. If I lift weights for an hour, I see a really disappointing number of 250. Well, does that mean that cardio is 4 times better for me than lifting weights in terms of calorie burn? And absolutely, you're right, Colin. No, it doesn't, because the more muscle mass you have, the more you're burning calories at a higher rate for 24 hours a day. But for someone who's mostly sedentary, Chris, what are some of the simple ways that they can increase their daily energy expenditure without completely overhauling sort of their entire daily routine?
They can increase their step count first and foremost. So, if you're sedentary and let's say you have a 10 o'clock tea break or something in your office or you're working from home, you could grab your apple and your cup of coffee in a go cup, take a nice 15-minute walk, and then you'll be surprised. Like a 15-minute brisk walk can burn a lot of calories, as we said. Cardio does burn a lot of calories. Also, we can get into sort of social, I call it like social cardio that you don't realize is happening. You can go play pickleball, play some soccer with your old school friends or something. And yeah, let's say two evenings, 2 or 3 evenings a week, family commitments, depending. Speaking from experience there, the pressure to get out and get away from the family if it's possible. Um, you could burn a lot of calories daily, so you could really increase your BMR and your total calories over like even a weekly or monthly period. Those little increases all throughout the day would make a huge difference to your overall TDE.
Absolutely. And I think one of the best ways as well is just stand up more. You just burn more calories standing up. For anybody that watches this podcast fairly frequently, I know a lot of my clients do is if I'm not running it when Andrew's around, I stand up. I am the biggest fidget in the world. I don't get as many steps in as I used to without factoring in breaks throughout my day, which I have to schedule. So just a simple little trick in the I posted a video on it the other day, just walk around the office. It can be that simple. If that's the only way that you think that you can maximize, just pace up and down in your office. I've got kettlebells in front of me. I might sit there and do, a few squats or something like that. It might look a little bit odd, but from a calorie burning position, you're going to be much healthier from just increasing that non-exercise activity throughout your day. Um, can metabolic adaptation play a role in weight loss plateaus? Colin? And if so, how can people adjust to keep making progress?
It can do because, like we talking about there, your TDEE and even your BMR subsection of that. It's not a set figure that's never going to change. It is a moving target. And so if you begin a weight loss journey on a set amount of calories, which is enough to put you in a deficit, as you start to lose weight, that number is going to reduce as well. So that deficit becomes smaller. And the chances of it becoming smaller again is where, our metabolism can slow down, which is a case of, because you're now chronically dieting and you are doing quite a lot of exercise or certainly activity and trying to increase your steps, the amount of non-exercise activity you do outside, like you just said there about fidgeting, or as you say, just moving around that little bit more, standing up, you're going to do all of that less. Your body is naturally going to reduce all of these things that, it's requiring energy, but it's not necessary. Your body's basically going to shut down a lot of those things without you really knowing it. And so that way, again, your metabolism is slowing down because you're just not burning as many calories because you're just not being as active as you think you are.
Yeah.
So that's where, it can slow down. And obviously you just have less mass as well. So your body doesn't need as many calories. Where you can help to monitor that, I suppose, is just being data driven. So obviously keeping account of as many metrics as possible. So that's obviously checking your weight frequently and looking for the trends as opposed to, daily fluctuations. And then as well as that, obviously, again, we talked about the step count is kind of the best proxy for how active you are. If you're keeping that consistent, then again, you might drop off a little bit of activity from just fidgeting and stuff, but it's not going to be a ton of calories unless you're particularly fidgety. Then it's a massive drop off. But yeah, generally speaking, as I say, as long as you are tracking things and you're consistent, then you should be able to continue making progress.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've had an Apple Watch for about the last 8 or 9 years. I'm obsessed with it. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly step challenges in terms of how physically active you are. It's such a great indicator in terms of seeing relationships between what your weight looks like 12 months ago, but were you more physically active? Were you less physically active? Chris, you touched on it earlier as well, trying to up your step count, and there's this random number thrown around of 10,000. The way 10,000 steps a day, which is a fairly arbitrary number, right? I think the most important thing is looking at how many steps you're averaging over a week, over a month, perhaps the first quarter of this year. If you're doing 5,000 steps a day, rather than setting yourself an unrealistic target of saying, right, it's got to be 10,000, which is probably not going to happen. Well, how about you just add 10% to that over that next month? How about you try and then add another 10%, another 10%? So even from a non-exercise activity perspective, try and still set yourself realistic targets rather than it's got to be 10,000, it's got to be 15,000 steps. That's excellent. Before we move on, anybody have anything else to say in relation to total daily energy expenditure?
We've discussed building more muscles. We discussed obviously increasing daily steps, how to increase TDEE naturally, eating more protein. But I think one really important thing is sleep and stress management. It's really, I know it doesn't sound like how sleep can help me to lose. Well, if your sleep is poor and if you're stressing too much, you're going to lower your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, because you're going to move less and you will less likely overeat. You will increase cravings, at least for these two reasons. So really, these four things I would summarize: build muscles, increase by moving more, eat more protein, and sleep well and manage your stress.
I couldn't agree with you more. For me, I have a sleep, hydration, activity, nutrition, and exercise. My brother calls it the Shane lifestyle, SHANE. Sleep would always come top of that list because without that 7 to 9 hours consistently, you're absolutely right. Everything else just kind of collapses underneath you. From talking about the negative feedback loop, self-sabotage in your fitness and your nutrition journey. I'm sure it's happened to all of you guys. It's definitely happened to me in the past. Perhaps something throws you off, perhaps a change of environment, perhaps an injury, perhaps you're going through some emotional problems, family problems, whatever. why why do people self-sabotage their journey, and how can we almost get ahead of that? Chris, I'll fire that over to you.
So I've seen this with family members and maybe even myself to some extent. Some people, crazy as it sounds, they find comfort in that sort of self-sabotage loop because it's something they're familiar with. So they might start a training program or start a nutrition program. It gets a little bit tough, and they're like, "Oh well, I'm like I always mess up, so I guess I'll just jack it in." And then they start the whole cycle again, and they just get caught in that. There can be like a real comfort because actually, in a crazy way, getting the results, putting in the hard work is completely like unknown territory to them. So they'll stay kind of like if there's a hamster in a cage and you open up the gate, one hamster will run out and the other hamster will be like, "No, I'm staying here. It's all good for me here." So it's really just human nature how somebody could identify that at the root. They could write things down like why do I do this? What's the trigger? Um, what environment am I in? Where's this like roadblock? How can I get past it or around it or over it? Um, they're just some really good kind of things we could write down. I find that writing things down really helps. Like, oh, X and Y is sending me off course, so maybe I can just take another route.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think is it psychological? Is it an emotional? Is it something
Yeah,
else?
I think it's highly emotional and
Yeah,
psychological. It's definitely not physical. Like they're definitely not like dropping on the floor and like, oh well, I'm in the negative feedback loop now, and they just roll away and say goodbye. It's definitely like emotional and psychological. It may even be rooted like a lot of these things are in childhood. Like, oh, in school, I was always like crap at this and this and this is kind of triggering me in this way. And it's like back into your shell and retreat.
yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the most common negative feedback loops you think people fall into when trying to lose weight or build muscle, Puff?
Um, I think people get yourself in a feeling like they not progressing, lack of progress, so that they don't see uh the results right away. They get frustrated, so they either quit, blame yourself, and then as Chris mentioned, they start over again. Um, the other thing could be, you know, uh, if they miss some workout, they have this mindset of all or nothing. Yeah, they miss one workout, they feel guilty because they haven't stick to the plan 100%. Potentially, they might satisfy this frustration with eating or even binge eating. It depends. They feel even worse. They skip more workouts, and they are in a cycle of, you know, again, where at the not even point one, but point minus one, where they were before. So many people, fail, I think, because they expect to be perfect, but the reality is small, consistent progress beats extreme effort all day long. So uh, just reframe, that thinking and learn instead of, I failed my diet, say like, okay, what can I do? Adjust to make it more sustainable. Yeah. Or if you miss workout, think, okay, I'll move more today or tomorrow and get back on track. One sentence I've learned in one of my wasn't one like a nutrition mastermind, and one of the coaches said like, always remember, if you fall off track, whether it's nutrition, yeah, you absolutely destroyed your diet. You're only one good meal away from being back on track. Yeah, you skip your workouts. Guess what? You are just one workout from being back on a track. That's it. Just do it.
Absolutely. I think as well, a lot of these people are coming, sorry, a lot of our clients are coming to the business potentially having not done any form of exercise or anything like this for years. And you hit the nail on the head there. I think, it really is about long-term consistency, and it's something that I really press upon with people. My approach is this, if you can if you can give me 2 hours a week of your time over the next 52 weeks of the year, okay, minus Christmas and maybe some vacation thrown in there, but that can be 100 times that you've trained over the last 12 months. Well, that's huge. Let's be consistent with that to start with. It doesn't need to move mountains. And I think this is where so many people's fear is. It goes back to the TDEE conversation we were just having a conversation about just then, was everybody comes into a program like this looking to lose weight, the majority. So people then think they have to be training consistently every day, every day, every day. And the second that one of the wheels falls off, they get out and they slash the other three and they just sabotage that way. It's a case of, oh, well, what's the point? I couldn't agree with you more. You really are only one workout from getting back into it. And the same with if you can nail 100 times in a year, well, when we go into the second year, well, how about we try and train 3 times? That all of a sudden, that's 150 times a year. That's nearly half of the year that you're actually training, which is absolutely huge. Colin, what role does stress and sleep play in self-sabotage? A lot of our clients are traveling. A lot of our clients do high stressful jobs, busy jobs, on and off airplanes. I'll include travel in this as well. What role does that play in them self-sabotaging, and how can they manage that better if they're on and off an airplane?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty big. It's I can't remember the exact quote, so I'm not going to try to quote it, but I think it was Jeff Bezos where he was talking about. I think someone was asking him how many hours a day he works or something like that. But I don't think he worked that many hours, because he made the point of, at the level he's at, which a lot of the guys we work with, obviously not Jeff Bezos, but they're high up in the position they're in, to where all for the majority, all his job is making big decisions. It's not the day-to-day work. It's he's not having to do a lot of the grunt work at the bottom. It's just making high level decisions. And in order to do that, you need to have clarity. You need to be thinking clearly. You can't have a mind that's lacking in sleep, lacking in rest, full of stress. You're not going to make decisions clearly. And so I think for a lot of the guys in this situation, yeah, when you are self-sabotaging, you're doing it because you're not thinking clearly, or you haven't had enough rest, or you have had a lot of travel, or you have a lot of work stress on. And so it's having the mindset to be able to have a zoomed out look and approach to these kind of things in the moment, but also ahead of time as well, knowing that, okay, I have a lot of travel coming up. Okay, I know this week's going to be particularly stressful, or even if it's not, based on the past, something's going to come up this week that I have to deal with. And so I need to make sure that I'm prepared for that, whether that's for meals, whether I'm prepared for when my workouts are going to be, or whatever it is. I just need to be prepared for it, because I think when we're talking about self-sabotaging, I think a lot of times people are almost afraid to fail. And so I'm going to make this so difficult that it gives me an easy out when it doesn't work. So I'm going to make sure, I'm going to say I need to train every single day. I'm going to be really restrictive on my calories. I'm going to cut down on everything I'm eating. I'm going to try and get 12,000 steps every day, even though, we're recommending get 8,000 or 10,000. And inevitably, you're not going to be able to stick to that because of travel comes up, work stress comes up, whatever it is. And now it's a ready-made excuse of, well, I wasn't able to stick to it because of all these other things. It wasn't because, I didn't plan properly, or I set myself targets that were unrealistic. And so, like I say, it's about having the self-awareness as well to know what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what am I good at, what am I not good at, where do I need help. And so some of the guys we've worked with, and some of the guys we've worked with in the past, sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, I eat really healthy. Like, that's not the issue. But yeah, my weight is exactly the same every single week. And it's like, well, you can't have that mindset of the nutrition is not the problem. I just need to exercise more. But my weight is staying exactly the same every week. It's like, well, is it though? And it's like, well, yeah, I do have a drink, every couple of nights, and yeah, we had dinner out this night, or yeah, I had some ice cream then, or I had some cookies then. But generally, I eat healthy. It's like you have to have the self-awareness of, knowing when you're bullshitting yourself, basically, because until you do that, until you have that mindset, and then especially I think when someone jumps onto a program like this, you have to just commit to the fact that I'm signing up because these guys are experts. They're going to lay out the plan, and I just have to commit to doing what they're suggesting, whether I think it's right or not, based on my experience. If I commit to it, if I get the results, brilliant. Turns out I was wrong. If it turns out I don't get the results and I was right, then fair enough. You've figured out that these guys are not experts. But generally, for any of the guys that we've worked with, they follow the plan. They usually get results.
Absolutely. And I think for me to kind of jump into the travel aspect of sort of self-sabotage, I break it down into three categories. So we can think about food, we can think about activity, and we can think about exercise. Let's try and aim to get two of those in. If you know that you can control the food, but you aren't going to exercise that day, try and be as active as you physically can. If you know that you're going to have a night out with clients and it's going to be whining and dining, okay, well, maybe we try and up activity as much as possible that day and you try and get to the gym. If we can take care of a couple of those things, that is going to significantly help and hopefully get you out of any potential, because for people that are watching this and people that are on this program, everybody's constantly on and off an aeroplane. And I think, as much as life gets in the way, let's try and create as much of a structure around that travel environment as possible if you are somebody that you find it throws you off your game. Um, can accountability, like having one of us, can that help in terms of disrupting self-sabotage, Chris?
Most definitely. So what I was saying before about writing things down, having a coach then is even like a level above that, I feel, because you have that sort of sounding board. And I mean, for the most part, especially coaches like us, not to brag or boast, but some maybe lower level coaches might just always be like, no, no, you're great, everything's great. Whereas we might give you a big spoonful of nasty truth medicine. So that can help as well because it's like, oh, like he's saying that to me because he cares. Okay, right. And he's giving me a couple of solutions. So my little sort of escape route I was trying there, like going back to what the guy said about like, oh, I'm gonna make this so hard so I can just fail. Well, he or she is giving me the sort of stepping stones to get out of this negative feedback loop. And it's like a person who kind of walks the walk and talks the talk as well. So um that would be even a like that would probably be the highest above because your family and friends are going to tell you one thing, you're going to tell yourself some other thing, but a good coach is just going to give you the truth and give you solutions as well. So it really is the best thing to get you out of that negative feedback loop. And that's speaking from experience as well. I've had good coaches myself, bad coaches in the past where I would know myself like, oh, that exercise I performed was terrible. Fine, I'll get it good again. And the coach is just like, yeah, high five, everything's awesome.
Yeah, they're the
And then
worst type of
you're
coaches.
like, let's fix X, Y, and Z. Come on, you're better than this. You can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, Pav, my last question to you would be, why do you think so many people give up when they don't see immediate results? And how do you deal with people like that? And how do you try and educate them that they need to look a little bit further down the road?
It's perhaps self-beliefs, or maybe they had similar experience in the past. They just think this is it, like that's them, and they don't have that inner strength, maybe to inner motivation, or they forget why they came here at the first place. Yeah, so I think it's really down to mindset, and I don't know why. There's some people who has stronger, why they know what they want, where they go. Um, And yeah, that's probably, I think it's the reason.
Absolutely. The one thing that I love on people's onboarding forms when they first join the program is their why. And I will, whenever I see somebody going down a little bit of a negative rabbit hole, is just pull out that why. It might be my father passed away from cancer, or I've got, blood pressure, or I want to see my kids grow up, whatever it is, I think reinforcing that kind of emotional relationship with what they're trying to achieve and why they're trying to achieve it can be a huge stimulus to keep people on the right path and on track. Awesome. Guys, any final thoughts before we finish? That was an excellent couple of topics there. Anything else anybody wanted to say before we jump off?
No, I think
No?
that's it.
No,
I think
that's it.
ultimately positive feedback, being in a positive mindset is always going to trump in a negative mindset. So rather than beating yourself up, it's, been positive as to the progress you have made. So like I was saying there, and that if people don't see progress right away, chances are you are, maybe if it's okay, I'm really wanting to lose 5-10 pounds, I'm not seeing the progress on the scales. Well, have you made progress in terms of just developing better habits? Have you got a better understanding of nutrition? Are you actually walking more steps? All these kinds of things are also, results and again positive things to reinforce and to build the momentum, which is, if you continue doing all them, then the getting to the right weight or whatever the physical or performance goal you have is inevitably going to happen.
Absolutely. And I also think as well, one thing that we ask on this is take measurements, take pictures. People look at themselves because you see yourself in the mirror every day with your top off or whatever. You think, I'm not making any progress. And it's not until you show them side by side pictures of look what you've done for 6 months, see that significant achievement, or take a measure of your bicep and go, wow, look, you've added an inch on that over the last 3 months or something. These are just as big a measurements than just jumping on the scales and seeing whether that number has gone down. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for that. I will see you all on Monday, and everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.